In today's breaking story, Donald Trump's favorite puppet J.D. Vance just admitted that the Catholic Church is on their enemies list, and I have all the details, including the church's unfiltered criticism of them and the resulting Trump threat of continued retribution coming up next. While President Donald Trump is very busy playing golf and posting bizarre AI images of himself on Truth Social, this is how he sees himself as a gangster, I think.
Al Capone. You know, he's the meanest, most vicious guy. Scarface. He's a fine gentleman.
J.D. Vance stepped up to take the well-deserved slings and arrows on Face the Nation. I will show his damnation of the Catholic Church in just a minute, but first let's watch the self-described hillbilly attempt to defend Trump's core promise and most frequent campaign lie.
We will end inflation. You just watch. They'll come down and they'll come down fast. I will end inflation. I'll end inflation.
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all of these executive orders. Which one lowers prices?
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices.
No, JD, there's not a connection between those two things. But let's continue with the political word salad of pivots.
More capital investment, more job creation in our economy is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need.
Again, he offers no substance in connecting those two things.
No, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time.
Tomorrow I will end inflation.
But it's going to take a little bit of time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
No, but all the things you experience at the grocery store are what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course. of course.
And now for today's breaking story. For context, here's exactly what the Catholic Church has condemned when it comes to Trump's policy, followed by Vance representing Trump with a not-so-veiled threat of continued retribution.
A growing number of church leaders are criticizing President Trump's immigration policies. A prominent Catholic church leader said, quote, some provisions contained in the executive orders, such as those focused on the treatment of immigrants and refugees, are deeply troubling and will have negative consequences in their view. Let's bring in now Bishop Mark Seitz. He's the chairman of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Committee on Migration. Is the Catholic Church in the United States taking a formal position on President Trump's immigration policies in recent days?
We are. We think we have to speak to many of these policies, which we see as going against some of the basic tenets of our faith, frankly. The fundamental right of every human person that need to be respected, no matter their origin, no matter their situation. In years of receiving people, we had not one violent incident in that shelter in all of those years. In fact, we saw a great deal of faith. We saw a great deal of goodness. They were all ready to help us in the shelter and do whatever they could with a great deal of gratitude for the assistance we gave.
What do you say to those who disagree with the church's official position, and how should they handle it, in your view, as a church official?
Step back. Don't just react. Listen. Read the Gospels, because that's where we get most of our stuff.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
But let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line?
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce the law everywhere to protect Americans.
Effect, a chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming into our country.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S.
law
Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
Moving forward, you know we can count on the Trump administration to make things difficult for the Catholic Church in providing aid and support to immigrants by continuing to lean into fear-mongering and intimidation. But I want to draw attention to Vance questioning the Catholic Church's motives. Are they in it for humanitarian or financial reasons? In researching this story, I uncovered this video that features well-known white nationalist Steve Bannon floating the same idea. And I underline white nationalist because every Trump policy about immigration and every Vance and Bannon talking point about it is always a smokescreen for it. Let's close with a look on Bannon's take that appeared on 60 Minutes. Bannon's takes are always less sophisticated than Vance's because he doesn't even try to hide the bigotry. But it's a take that was easily deconstructed by a professor who is an expert on such matters.
This is not about doctrine. This is about the sovereignty of a nation. And in that regard, they're just another guy with an opinion.
It wasn't in the confessional, but a TV confession that has some Catholics saying Steve Bannon has some atoning to do. In a 60 Minutes interview, the former White House chief strategist said this about the Catholic bishops' supportive dreamers.
They need illegal aliens to fill the churches. It's obvious on the face of it. That's what the entire Catholic bishops condemning. They have an economic interest. They have an economic interest in unlimited immigration, unlimited illegal immigration.
That is plainly, logically wrong, because when you care for the vulnerable and you care for the most maligned people in a society, which the church is doing throughout the world, that does not fill your coffers, it drains them.
LMU theology professor Cecilia Gonzalez-Andrew says Bannon, who is also Catholic, needs to brush up on the gospel and says the church's position is consistent with the Christian's duty to love thy neighbor.
I was concerned that Catholic teaching is being so misrepresented by someone with such a big megaphone.
Bannon's words are sure to get a lot of attention. Parishioners we spoke with wish he'd stay out of religion.
That's uncalled for.